Well, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Kathleen Redmond of the Center for Character Leadership, and this video, this 10-minute video, is part of our Building Character series. And I'm so thrilled today to have Patrick McCann of McCann Learning Solutions with me to talk about what's been different for us as coaches and trainers in the last few months, particularly around this pandemic. I know it certainly built character for me. And Pat, looking forward to hearing what you've been going through.
Thank you. And thank you for organizing this. This is almost a year now that we've been in this lockdown mode. So any opportunity I have to kind of do up my hair and put some makeup on to look good for a video, I appreciate it. So I think really for me, it's, I think the buzzword of 2020 was pivot and the ability of organizations to adapt to what was happening with COVID. A year ago, I had a client come to me and say they wanted to do the largest technology implementation than they've ever done. And as COVID started to become a real challenge, there were a lot of questions of whether this was even doable or not. At some point, someone turned to me, one of the senior leaders turned to me and said, have you ever done this before? This is a rollout for 400 people. We're going to do all the training and the go live virtually. Pat, have you ever done this before? Or have you known of an organization that has done this before? And a bit of an awkward moment because I want to be honest and yet I want to be positive. So I said, no, I've never done it. I'm not sure an organization's done it, but I believe that with the right framework and foundation, it can work, it can happen. And as we worked through the journey, I'd say really there were two underlying pieces. The one would be just from an employee experience standpoint, we wanted employees to feel like they were there. Even though all the communication, all of the training, the go live support would be done virtually, we wanted them to feel engaged and part of it. And we knew that would be challenging when everyone's sitting in their own home versus being in a building together. So we did a lot of work around how to make that feel right for them. I think the bigger piece was how did we effectively get the leaders ready for this? So, a lot of what you talk about, leader as coach. How do you coach effectively in a virtual world? We knew that we could deliver really effective training, but the leader would be the person that would really sort of act as our pulse on how are people feeling? Do they feel ready? Are they worried? And, helping the leaders do more than just ask questions like, how did the training go? Or how are you feeling? But, what are you feeling excited about? What are you worried about? What can we do to help you effectively? Really getting leaders to play that role. And I think those were the really two, the keys to what we were able to accomplish. And in the end, it was successful. We've now launched. We delivered 128 training sessions. We trained 1,700 people. We had really high engagement scores in the 90s on pretty well every measure we had. But I really have to say, to me, the part that was exciting was watching the leaders grow and step into that role of really supporting their people through the process. To me, that was exciting. It was challenging, but it was really rewarding at the same time. So I'd say to me, that was really the biggest thing I've seen with COVID is leadership development, leaders being able to grow and step up to the challenge. So now what's been happening for you?
Well, first of all, let me say congratulations, as I know that was a huge project. And I think when you think of perseverance and courage, Pat, you were courageous and you definitely persevered, because I know in the beginning it looked so absolutely overwhelming, but you got through it, you got to the other end. And I'm so delighted for you. It's another skill now in your toolkit, which is quite an amazing toolkit.
Thank you.
Yeah, so for me, much the same. Last year at this time, everything canceled. Big sessions, small sessions, everything canceled. I think leaders were trying to figure out what next. Are we going to go back to what we knew before, was going to be instructor-led, or what are we going to do? At the same time, I've always done virtual training, as you know. So as of, I guess about 6 months ago, things have actually been very, very busy. So I continue to coach one-on-one. I've been doing many virtual sessions, and what I found is keep the participant groups small, keep everybody on camera, because if they're not on camera, I'm afraid they're going to be doing their emails. Hopefully it's not because I'm so boring, but because people have so much to do. So to keep it small, keep everyone on camera, highly interactive, and that takes a little courage, and it's draining, but the people are doing it, and I'm getting some really great results. So continued on as well with leaders around, do you have the systems in place for people to be for leaders to be able to lead performance, manage performance in the way that you want within your organization. You and I have talked about this so many times because that's critical. And they tend to be small meetings. So that has worked out okay. I did do one large session as well with, I think, had 110 people in it. Certainly learned all sorts of technology and had a great technological team behind me so that we can be dealing with whiteboards and slides in a different kind of way and keep it interactive. But that took a lot of planning and a lot of support. But thank goodness it worked out. We also had good results. But for sure, going through that roller coaster ride of where are we today and what does the future look like, and just trying to take things one day at a time and support leaders as they go through this. This whole leading in our virtual world. I've done a fair amount of those conversations and sessions as well.
Yeah, I think if we were talking a couple of years ago, we were talking about how do we effectively support leaders, thinking about how you do that effectively in a virtual world was honestly a little bit daunting at times. Like, can you really do it as well? But to your point, when you create that right kind of environment for people in a learning environment virtually, it almost feels like at times like we're in the same room together. Everyone's on screen, you use the whiteboard, you're trying to create that same experience for them. And maybe it's just because we're getting more and more used to these virtual formats that it feels like you're in the room. We've gotten used to not being in the room, I guess, in some ways, but you still feel the personal connection. And I think face-to-face can help, when you're doing, as you said, cameras on. There is still a personal connection between people, which is so important. But to me, the most important part is leaders need help through this. Like this, even some of the things that you were really good at need to be tweaked and adapted to survive in a virtual world. So this is where I see leaders really need our help, and what a great opportunity to help them navigate this and still get great results with their people.
Well, and that's a great point. And so many of the conversations I've had have been around self-care. What are you doing to take care of yourself through this? Because I love that line, you can't give what you haven't got. So, what is it that you're doing? Is it taking walks or learning something new or reading books that you wouldn't have or spending time with your family and friends, and whatever it is that gives you something to look forward to and find joy in is so important. So that's a starting point. And then it's how are you taking care of your team? How are you checking in to make sure that people are okay? And not everybody wants to divulge everything in their life, but nonetheless to truly have a sense of are they okay? And then the third piece is keeping an eye on performance. And I think this is being done in an even more focused kind of way. What's the priority today? What's how are we going to get through this? How are we going to hold ourselves accountable for it? So, really that self-care, team care, prioritization of performance seem to be key tools at this point in time.
Yeah, and I'm aligned, and I say that, for me, leaders always have two journeys. They have the journey with their team and helping them figure out how to navigate something, but they're also navigating at the same time, trying to figure out how do I continue to be effective as a leader in this environment? So they're almost on two journeys at the same time, which can be challenging. So I think for me, the nice thing about this whole virtual world is, well, it was probably overwhelming to begin with. I think very much so. It's such an opportunity, and there's so much possibilities with what we can do. And it's exciting. I think it's exciting for both of us that we've got the opportunity to work with our clients and help them do the things we've always believed in, but in a virtual environment, in COVID, in a pandemic, and still make it work.
No, you're absolutely right. And I love what you said about makeup. So keeping an eye on that and keeping an eye on the time, because we are at 10 minutes. And thanks, Pat. I really enjoyed the conversation as always with you.
Anytime. Thank you. I enjoyed it as well.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye now.